My family's favoritism toward my adopted sister left me overlooked until. For my entire life, I was invisible. Consumed by my family's blinding favoritism toward my adopted sister, I drowned in a silent sea of hurt and neglect. But then, at my own birthday party, her true identity exploded into the room, tearing our lives apart and shattering everything I thought I knew. Family trouble? That's been the soundtrack to my 35 years. But what's happened recently? It's pushed me past the breaking point. Right now, I feel like I'm suffocating in pain, uncertainty, and a burning hatred I didn't know I was capable of. I'm hoping someone out there, anyone who's been through a similar hell, can offer a lifeline, some wisdom to make sense of this chaos. My adopted sister, she's 3'4", just 1 year younger than me. Our parents adopted her when she was a newborn, and we grew up side by side, sharing every childhood milestone. You'd think that would forge an unbreakable bond, right? A sisterly connection built on shared history. But the truth was a cruel twist of fate, far from any romantic ideal. From my earliest memories, it was painfully clear who held our parents' hearts. They lavished her with attention, bent over backward to give her every whim, and hung on her every word. I remember, I was just 5, so proud to show my mom a little sketch I'd drawn. She barely glanced at it, waving me off because my sister was, for the 100th time, reciting the alphabet. It seems small, insignificant maybe, but it was the first crack, the first sign of a pattern that would carve deep canyons into our family dynamic for years to come. As we grew older, that distance between us only widened. When my sister struggled with reading in elementary school, my parents spent hours every night patiently working with her. Me. I consistently aced school, brought home stellar report cards, and what did I get? A fleeting, almost absent-minded, good job. In middle school, I won the scientific fair, a huge accomplishment. But my parents weren't there at the awards ceremony. They were at my sister's dance recital. It was always like that. Her desires, her achievements, her struggles, they always came first. Now, I don't want to imply I was abused or neglected in the traditional sense. We always had a roof over our heads, food on the table, our basic needs were met. But the emotional neglect? That was very real, and it was profoundly agonizing. Early on, I learned that being flawless, achieving, excelling, was the only currency for attention in our home. So, I did just that with an almost obsessive zeal. High school was a blur of textbooks and AP exams, locked away in my room, meticulously filling out college applications. Meanwhile, my sister was out at parties, laughing with friends. I told myself it was worth it. I earned a half scholarship to a prestigious university. I thought, this will finally make my parents proud. But on the day I left for college, instead of celebrating my triumph, they fussed endlessly about how my sister would cope with my absence. It was a punch to the gut. College was an awakening. For the first time, I was evaluated purely on my own merits, not in relation to my sister. I found real friends who cherished me for who I was, and I blossomed, both socially and academically. After graduating with honors, I landed a position at a prominent company, and over the next 10 years, I climbed that corporate ladder with unwavering resolve. That tiny, persistent voice inside me, still craving my parents' elusive praise, fueled every promotion, every accomplishment. I am genuinely proud of where I am now, working in a senior management role for a Fortune 500 firm. Yet, that pride is a bitter cocktail, always laced with resentment because no matter what I achieve, my family never seems satisfied. My sister, on the other hand, has never really settled. She's drifted between jobs, still lives with our parents, who shower her with both emotional and financial support. My success, ironically, seemed to only reinforce their favoritism. They constantly invent excuses for her lack of focus. Oh, she's just trying to find her passion. Or, not everyone needs to climb the corporate ladder to be happy. But my achievements? If they're acknowledged at all, they're met with a lackluster, almost obligatory, congrats. This toxic dynamic has poisoned every corner of our family relationships. Get-togethers are a minefield of thinly veiled bitterness and passive-aggressive jabs. I've tried to talk to my parents, to voice my feelings, but they always brush them off, accusing me of being envious or too sensitive. And my sister? She seems to relish her preferred status, often making cutting remarks about me being married to my job or too busy for family. I've been in therapy for years, trying to untangle these knots, build my self-esteem, set healthy boundaries. But every single encounter with my family feels like a step backward, undoing all my progress. I've even considered cutting them off entirely, but the thought of losing my family, dysfunctional as they are, feels devastating. This brings me to last week. The events that have forced me to reevaluate every single relationship in my life. As usual, our parents threw my sister a lavish birthday bash. Friends, extended family, even old classmates were there. Catered food, an open bar, a live band. The house was decorated like a wedding ceremony. My birthday last month was a quiet dinner for the four of us, and most of the conversation revolved around my sister's latest business venture. Some pet-related social media app she believes will be the next big thing. When I tried to talk about a significant project I'm overseeing at work, my parents' eyes glazed over after about 2 minutes. I tried to blend in at the party, to be supportive, to encourage my sister on her special day. I made polite conversation with relatives, struck up small talk. But as the evening wore on, that old, familiar bitterness began to churn inside me. It wasn't just the extravagant celebration. It was the way our parents gushed over her, how family members inquired about her life, barely noticing mine, how she soaked up all the attention as if it were her birthright. I felt an anxiety attack rising, so I retreated to a quiet corner, clutching a glass of wine. My cousin, seeing how upset I was, approached me. Her voice was genuinely concerned. "Are you okay?" she asked. For the first time that evening, someone had actually bothered to ask about my well-being. I started to reply, but my sister's voice, amplified by the throng, cut through before I could. She tapped her glass with a spoon, her voice loud, demanding attention. "Everyone, I'd like to make a toast." The room fell silent, all eyes on my sister. She swayed slightly, her cheeks flushed, clearly having had a bit too much to drink. But as she began her address, she still managed a convincing smile. At first, it seemed like a standard birthday tribute. She raised a glass to our parents for their love and support, thanked everyone for coming, expressed gratitude for the celebration. Then her tone shifted, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. "I'm especially grateful to Mom and Dad," she said, a new, chilling tone in her voice, one I'd never heard before. "They've always treated me better than their own daughter. Just look at this party. When was the last time they threw my sister a party like this?" My face burned as everyone in the room turned to stare at me. But my sister wasn't finished. "But I guess," she slurred slightly, the champagne catching up to her, "that's because I've always been the better daughter. Yes, my sister has a nice career and makes a lot of money, but who do Mom and Dad truly love in the end? Who makes their life happier? It's not the icy, work-driven automaton who hardly has time for family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was frozen. The room had become eerily quiet, save for a few painful coughs and my sister's voice, which seemed to grow louder with every word. "You know, it's funny," she continued with a small wobble. "Everyone always praised my sister's intelligence and her potential for success, but look at us now. I'm here with family and friends who genuinely care about me, while she's by herself, married to her job." I looked at our parents, desperate for them to intervene, to stop this vicious attack. But they just sat there, looking uneasy, doing absolutely nothing to stop it. I have never felt more utterly alone in my entire life than I did at that precise moment. My sister babbled on, dissecting and criticizing every aspect of my life, from my appearance to my lack of a partner, even implying I'd slept my way to the top at work. With every word, I felt myself shrinking, years of repressed hurt and rage threatening to erupt. Just as I felt I couldn't take another second, just as I was about to burst into tears, my aunt, my mother's sister, stepped forward. Her face was set, determined, angry. She walked up to me and handed me an envelope. "Don't open this until I'm done talking," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. Her eyes blazed as she turned to face the stunned crowd. What followed was something out of a soap opera. My aunt announced that my sister wasn't adopted from a foster home. She was her biological daughter. It turns out my aunt had gotten pregnant suddenly in her early 20s and wasn't prepared to be a mother. Instead of terminating the pregnancy, she'd begged my parents to adopt the child. "I thought I was doing the right thing," my aunt said, her voice trembling with emotion. "I believed my sister and her husband would give my child a better life. I believed she would grow into a kind, caring person, appreciative of her life." Then she turned to face my sister, who had gone completely white. "Instead," my aunt declared, her voice laced with disgust, "you've become a conceited, self-centered brat who thinks it's okay to mock her sister in public. I've watched this family dynamic unfold for years, and I can no longer keep quiet about it." Chaos erupted. My sister shrieked, demanding to know if it was true. Our parents shot daggers at my aunt, trying to soothe my sister. Family members pointed and muttered, a cacophony of gasps and whispers. And me? I stood there, gripping the envelope, feeling as though the earth had simply vanished beneath my feet. My aunt's voice, once again, sliced through the pandemonium. I always thought that if my daughter was being raised by my sister, she would grow up to be a wonderful person, she expressed, her disappointment palpable. But obviously, I was mistaken. No good person would ever attempt to make their sister look as bad as you just did. Then, she turned to me and instructed me to open the packet. Inside was a blank check. Fill in whatever amount you want, my aunt told me. I had planned to give this to her as a birthday gift, but after seeing how she's turned out, I have no interest in rewarding that behavior. Then my aunt simply left, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. It was short-lived. My sister, suddenly hysterical, lunged at me, trying to snatch the check from my hands. Our parents had to physically restrain her as she screamed and sobbed. It was more than I could handle. I fled to my room, slammed the door shut, and just sobbed. Years of suppressed hurt, bitterness, and feeling inferior came rushing out like a dam breaking. I ignored the banging on my door and the muffled arguments drifting up from downstairs, crying for hours. A week has passed, and I'm still unsure about what to do. I haven't left my room except for basic necessities. My parents have tried to talk to me, but I can't bring myself to face them. My sister has alternated between begging for forgiveness, and the check, of course, and sending me angry messages. There's a part of me that desperately wants to cash that check, disappear, and never look back. I've tried my entire life to win the love and acceptance of people who don't seem capable of giving it. Maybe I should just give up. Maybe it's time for me to prioritize myself. By the way, if you're still with me, make sure to hit subscribe. More unbelievable stories like this are coming. But then the fear creeps in. The fear of losing my family. Despite their dysfunction, they are the only family I have ever known. The thought of living without them, going on vacation alone, having no one to call in an emergency, it's terrifying. And I have so many mixed feelings about my sister. On one hand, I'm furious with her for her actions at the party and for years of subtle insults. But on the other, I can't help but feel a little sorry for her. Learning you're adopted, especially in such a public, humiliating way, must be devastating. Does that justify her actions? Not at all. But it makes things incredibly complicated. As for my parents, I still can't comprehend how they could have just sat there while my sister tore me apart. Were they simply taken aback? Or does their lack of response reveal their true feelings for me after years of emotional neglect and favoritism? How do I even begin to process this? I feel like I'm standing at a fork in the road, completely lost. Should I try to repair these shattered relationships? Can something healthy ever be built from such a poisonous foundation? Or do I walk away and attempt to start over? A new life where I'm not constantly chasing unfulfilled approval? Reddit, I am lost. I've tried my whole life to gain their love and acceptance, only to be rejected and humiliated. How do I move forward from here? Do I accept that some families cannot be fixed, or is there any hope for reconciliation? Any insight or counsel would be profoundly valued. I truly feel like I'm drowning in hurt and confusion, and I'm no longer sure which way is up. 2 days after that horrific birthday celebration, I was still reeling. My aunt came to visit me. She looked utterly drained as she recounted the full story of the adoption. She'd been young and afraid when she got pregnant. My parents, who had been trying for another child, seemed like the perfect solution. To keep everyone safe, they agreed to keep it a secret. My aunt had been saving money for years, intending to give it to my sister when she was ready to be self-sufficient. But after the party, she realized I was more deserving. She pressed the blank check into my hand. I felt a strange mix of guilt for taking something meant for my sister and profound justification that someone finally recognized the unfairness of my life. Despite my attempts to decline, my aunt insisted, calling it back pay for emotional labor. That evening, I made a decision. I packed my bags, checked into a hotel across town, and left a note for my parents. I needed time to think. For the next few days, I ignored calls and messages from my relatives. I did some serious introspection, talked to my therapist, and consulted a financial advisor about the check. 5 days later, I emailed my parents. I assured them I needed time, but that I was secure. Then, I laid out my requirements for mending our relationship. They had to admit to years of partiality. We all had to attend family therapy. My sister had to apologize publicly, they had to start treating us equally, and they had to stop condoning her actions. Their response was immediate. They were relieved, they said, and begged me to come home so we could discuss. We agreed to meet at a cafe near my hotel. It was a tense encounter. My parents agreed to therapy and pledged to improve our ties. They even seemed genuinely sorry. But they expressed reluctance about a public apology regarding my sister's adoption, claiming it was too traumatic. I refused to back down. I insisted that she needed to issue a public apology for her actions, not just the adoption. We left with an uneasy truce. Everything but the public apology was approved, and they promised to talk to my sister. Over the next few days, the negotiations continued. At first, my sister sent irate messages, flatly refusing to apologize. But as I persisted, her tone started to shift. She sent an apology via text, claiming she was unhappy and intoxicated at the party. I countered that the apology needed to be not just for the party, but for years of nasty behavior. More irate texts followed, and then a chilling silence. My parents tried to mediate, offering solutions like a written statement or a private family apology. I was conflicted. Part of me wanted to be forceful, to demand the respect I so deserved. Another part wondered if the fight was even worth it, because it was so utterly exhausting. My therapist reminded me that prioritizing my health wasn't selfish. Setting boundaries, she said, is essential for healthy relationships. I've made a decision. I'm going to give my family one final opportunity to comply with my demands. If they are unable to, I will use my aunt's check to start over somewhere else, far away from family strife and past hurts. I'm feeling both nervous and optimistic as I prepare to deliver this ultimatum. Whatever happens will influence the rest of my life and all my future relationships. I'm desperately hoping I'm making the right decision. I will update you all. I deeply appreciate everyone's support. Knowing I'm not fighting this battle alone is incredibly reassuring. A week has passed since my last update, and things have drastically changed. I've decided to revoke the terms I established for reconciliation, but not for the reasons you might expect. After days of arguing with my family, I came to the gut-wrenching conclusion that their attempts at compromise were less about sincere regret and more about minimizing the damage. My sister's apology texts became increasingly manipulative, alternating between gaslighting and guilt-tripping. "You're tearing this family apart," she'd write then. "I don't even remember what I said at the party. Are you sure you're not exaggerating?" Meanwhile, my parents persisted in trying to reach a solution that seemed to skirt the real problems rather than deal with them head-on. They objected to admitting their part in creating this unhealthy relationship, instead proposing a private family gathering where my sister would offer an apology. As the pressure mounted, I started losing sleep, checking my phone constantly, and getting nervous every time it buzzed. It became painfully evident that my mental health was suffering because of this ongoing negotiation. At that point, I decided to remove my conditions. Not because I believe they're irrational, but because I now understand that meaningful change cannot be coerced or negotiated. My family just isn't there yet, and it has to originate internally. I wrote my parents a quick email. "I'm rescinding my previous conditions. I need space and time to heal. Please respect my wishes and don't contact me for a while." They reacted with astounding speed. The volume of calls, texts, and voicemails on my phone surged. They even showed up at my office, and I had to ask security to escort them out. They also reached out to a few of my friends, trying to persuade me to return home. "We love you, please come home. How can you do this to us? And your sister is devastated, she's not eating," were among the desperate, angry, and manipulative texts they sent. It's been nonstop emotional warfare. Sometimes the guilt is unbearable. Sometimes I question whether I'm exaggerating, or if I should just go home and try to forget everything. But then, I remember the years I spent feeling invisible, having my accomplishments disregarded, and seeing my sister consistently given preference. To help me deal with the stress, I've started going to my therapist twice a week. She's been helping me establish boundaries, like blocking my family's phone numbers and configuring email filters. Although it seems drastic, it's essential for my mental health right now. My workplace has become a haven for me. To avoid returning to my empty apartment, I've poured myself into tasks, staying late at work. Some of my coworkers have even expressed concern after noticing a difference in me, and even if I can't fully explain the circumstances, I appreciate their unspoken support. I still haven't cashed my aunt's check, though. It rests in my desk drawer, a continual reminder of the decision I must make. Part of me wants to tear it up, to show that I don't need their money or approval. Another part views it as a lifeline, an opportunity to start over somewhere new. I've actually begun looking at employment prospects in other cities, and even other nations. It is both incredibly exciting and utterly frightening to consider such a complete transformation. Was it truly possible for me to start afresh and leave everything behind? For the time being, I'm taking things day by day. I'm getting better at accepting the unease that comes with uncertainty and having faith that I'll know what to do when the time comes. Some days are harder than others. Sometimes I miss my family so terribly that it physically aches. However, there are also unexpectedly peaceful moments when I notice that my breathing is easier than it has been in years. I am aware that this journey is far from finished. There will be more emotional obstacles to conquer and more challenging choices to make. But I'm prioritizing myself for the first time in my life. It feels right, but it's also unpleasant and uncomfortable. I appreciate all of your ongoing help and guidance. Having this place to process and share is more important than you may realize. When I have more to report, I'll provide another update. In the interim, I'm concentrating on getting better and finding my identity outside of my family's shadow. 3 weeks have passed since my last report, and things have significantly worsened. Last Saturday, my sister unexpectedly showed up at my aunt's door while we were visiting. We were both completely taken aback. She stormed in, obviously drunk and absolutely furious, yelling, "You've ruined everything. You are attempting to take my life after stealing my mother." The stench of alcohol was overpowering, and her eyes were wild. My aunt and I actually had to hold her back as she lunged at me. She hurled accusations, claiming I had always been envious and had turned everyone against her. Even after everything that had transpired, the sheer hatred in her voice was startling. I was shocked by my aunt's response. Her normally composed manner had completely vanished. "You need to leave now," she said forcefully, her face hardening as she dragged my sister out of the house. My sister resumed her tirade outside, attracting neighbors' attention. "My mother is not you." I heard her shout at my aunt. "I was exposed to you. You can no longer act as though you care." A few of the neighbors even threatened to contact law enforcement. My sister eventually pulled away in her car, speeding off. My aunt was clearly shaken. Inside, she revealed that she had struggled with guilt over the adoption for years. She had believed that telling the truth would somehow fix things, but she now understood that the harm was much, much more extensive. "I believed I was acting appropriately," she muttered, her voice tinged with despair. "However, I might have just made things messier for everyone." The incident has had wide-ranging effects. Later, my parents called absolutely enraged, accusing me of trying to ruin our family and inciting my aunt against my sister. I tried to explain things to them, but they simply refused to listen. Members of the extended family have taken sides, causing the family to become severely divided. What started out as a private issue has turned into a full-fledged family conflict. The sheer intensity of it all overwhelms me. I feel guilty, even though I know it's not my fault. But I also feel an even stronger urge to withdraw completely and start over somewhere else. Because of my sister's increasingly erratic behavior, my aunt is worried about my safety and has proposed that I stay with her for a bit. I'm seriously thinking about it, but I'm afraid it might only make things worse. I'm trying my best to remain somewhat normal throughout this whole ordeal. I try to look after myself, go to work, and see my therapist. However, this familial conflict is a continual, suffocating burden. I wonder, will this ever truly end? Is it possible for a family to overcome such ingrained animosity and rage? Is it better to give up, or is it worth trying? I'm trying to avoid getting pulled back into the pandemonium, and I'm concentrating on my own recovery for the time being. Even though it's incredibly difficult, I'm committed to finding a solution, whether or not my family is on board. I deeply appreciate your unwavering support, everyone. You don't realize how much it matters. When I can, I'll provide another update, hopefully with more positive news. A month has passed since my last update, and I've made some decisions that will, without a doubt, change my life forever. Following that tumultuous incident with my sister at my aunt's place, I came to the stark realization that I needed to take immediate action to safeguard my mental health and truly create a future for myself. I've poured myself fully into my profession, asking my supervisor if I could move to another location to work for our company or take on more responsibility. I was genuinely surprised by how supportive she was. I'm currently in the running for a senior management job, that would take me across the nation. It's thrilling as well as terrifying. Along with the opportunity to oversee a large project, the new position offers a substantial wage increase. To get ready for this change, I've been working 12-hour days, attending every training session I can, and networking frantically. My increased zeal has sparked curiosity among my coworkers, but I've been able to sidestep most inquiries. A few close coworkers are well aware of my predicament and have been tremendously helpful. Regarding the money, I ultimately decided on my aunt's check. I made the decision to cash it after giving it a lot of thought and speaking with a financial advisor. With the assistance of my therapist, I was able to reframe it not as a handout, but as an investment in my future, one finally free from toxic family dynamics. I've secured an apartment in my prospective city using a portion of the funds. It's a compact, contemporary space with a view of the city skyline. I've put the remainder into a diversified portfolio. For the first time in my life, I feel truly autonomous and financially secure. The final separation from my family has been the most difficult aspect. I've blocked all of their phone numbers and email addresses. I've requested that my aunt not forward any of their texts. I know it's absolutely essential for my recovery, but it's been excruciating, like cutting off a piece of myself. Of course, there are periods of uncertainty. I occasionally feel inclined to call late at night, in an attempt to make amends. However, I then recall the years of gaslighting, the ongoing sense of inferiority, and the violent altercation at my aunt's house. It makes me even more determined to keep going. I recently began seeing a new therapist who focuses specifically on estrangement and familial trauma. She has been assisting me in overcoming my deep sadness and lingering guilt. To replace the family-centered customs I've left behind, we're concentrating on establishing a new network of support and developing new, healthy rituals. Additionally, I've joined a support group for those who are separated from their relatives. It has been both upsetting and incredibly consoling to hear their stories. I've learned that I'm not the only one going through this, and that you absolutely can have a happy, fulfilling life without the family you were born into. Regarding my aunt, we have kept up our friendship while setting clear limits. She doesn't try to act as a mediator and accepts my decision to break off contact with the rest of the family. Although her assistance has been priceless, I'm careful not to rely on her too much, ensuring I maintain my own independence. I feel a mixture of exhilaration and apprehension about the future. Though intimidating, the idea of starting over in a new place with a demanding new job and no family safety net is also incredibly freeing. For the first time, I feel that I am truly living my life according to my own terms, free from societal norms and familial expectations. I've even begun pursuing new interests and pastimes that I never had time for while I was preoccupied with family matters. I've joined a local hiking group, I'm learning how to cook, and I'm even thinking about taking up painting. As I pack up my apartment and get ready for this new phase, I've not felt this at peace in years. Yes, I am saddened by what I have lost, but I am also incredibly hopeful about the future. I'm no longer the neglected kid or the family scapegoat. I am only me, paving my own way. I want to thank everyone for their incredible support along this journey. You have no idea how much your words of encouragement have meant to me. This will be my last update. I need to put this chapter behind me and concentrate on writing the next one. Good luck to me. Thank you for watching. Have you ever had to choose between your mental peace and your blood family? What did you do? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.